Hare Krishna, dear Vaishnavis, a warm spring welcome from us in the Southern Hemisphere. In a letter dated 18th July 1970, Srila Prabhupada wrote, I know that if you maintain the association of devotees, your life will be happy and perfect. This is a version of the Shastra that the most important thing of spiritual realization is the company of realized souls or pure devotees of the Lord. It is a joy to spend this time with Prabhupada's wonderful, confident, and bubbly daughter, Mother Krsnanadini, who is expert at presenting in a practical, loving, and compassionate manner. She was brought to our global family by her mother as a young teenager, along with her siblings. She, along with her husband, are members of the Grihastha Vision team. Mother Krsnanadini has a wealth of wisdom, and her repertoire includes relationships, interfaith relations, surrender, preparing for life's final exam, and how different groups can come together to celebrate God consciousness. And an amazing thing that I just learned today is that we can go onto a website, Krsnanadini.com, for spiritual resources. How awesome is that? We will be putting up the link in the comment section on Facebook and in Zoom. So something to look forward to even more. Without further ado, dear Vaishnavis, welcome to Lessons from Kandari. A warm Haribol to you, Mother Krsnanadini. Over to you.
Thank you, Radhika, for that wonderful introduction. I don't know how bubbly I feel this moment, but we'll see. Okay, we're going to do a little prayer invocation, a little reading from Bible, and then we'll talk about our lessons that we can learn from Kandari. Very interesting personality in the history of the Mahabharata. So thank you all for this opportunity, and I really appreciate the how you all have taken time to consistently have these sanghas, which is very important for our spiritual growth. And it's just such a gift. Okay, here we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopika Vallabha Jivadari Jaya Gopika Vallabha Jivadari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Shiva Vanachari Jaya Raja Madhava Pujaya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Shiva Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Shiva Prabhupada Jaya Jagadguru Shila Prabhupada Jaya Jagadguru Shila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So So we're reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful story of the personality of Godhead. And it is chapter Canto 1, chapter 9, text 48. Tato Judhistiro Gatva Saha Krishna Gajavayam Pisaram Santavya Asa Gandarim Tapasvinim Tato Judhistiro Gatva Saha Krishna Gajavayam Pisaram Santavya Asa Gandarim Tapasvinim. Tata'a, thereafter, Yudhishthira, Maharaj Yudhishthira, Gatwa, going there, Saha, with Krishna, the Lord, Gajavayam, in the capital named Gajavayam Hastinapur, Pitaram, unto his uncle Dhritarashtra, Santoyam, Asa, consoled, Gandarim, the wife of Dhritarashtra, Cha, and Tapasvinim, an ascetic lady. Translation: Thereafter, Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital, Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna. And there he consoled his uncle and aunt Kandari, who was an ascetic. Purport: Dhritarashtra and Kandari, the father and mother of Duryodhana, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Dhritarashtra and Kandari, the father and the mother of Duryodhana and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaj Yudhishthira. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost all of their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaj Yudhishthira. They were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life, and were practically living the life of ascetics. The death news of Bhishma Dev, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen, and therefore they required solace from Maharaj Yudhishthira. Now Maharaj Yudhishthira was conscious of his duty, and he at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words, both from himself and the Lord also. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic, although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother. It is said that Gandhari also voluntarily closed her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband cent per cent, and Kandari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and her grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. But she suffered all this just like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. Om Janatamivandasya Jananjanashalakasya Chakyuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Suyam Upakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kantana Garangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaisnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Everybody, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Wow. So the story of Kandari is a very, very powerful story. And I don't think we talk enough about these powerful, rare ladies in the Mahabharata. Kandari, as Prabhupada explains here, was on an equal level as far as Grandfather Bhishma. And we know that Grandfather Bhishma in the history of devotions and devotees is very, very rare. So here we have a lady, Kandari, a rare ascetic, austere lady, a rare lady dedicated to religious principles, whose story is full of political intrigue and problems and this and that, and who has a commitment to a vow, a heavy vow. When Grandfather Bhishma made his vow, he was called the Terrible, because nobody could do that vow, give up their sense gratification just to please their father, but he did it. So we have these great beings who make these great commitments and great sacrifice, and they are to be honored and respected. And so in the Mahabharata, we'll tell Gandhari's story kind of briefly. So we know that the Mahabharata is the history of Greater India. So it's full of details of all the dynasties of kings and queens that come down. But the main story, the pivotal story, is about the Pandavas and the Kurus, who actually are the same family, but because of political intrigue and false ego and this kind of thing, you know, they become divided. So the story goes that Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidur, they're brothers, and their uncle is the very glorious Bhishma, who kind of raises the family like a father. And so Bhishma makes sure that his nephews are married, for example. He makes sure that they're taken care of until they grow up and, you know, are able to care for themselves, because their father was deceased. So Grandfather Bhishma played this very powerful role. And one of the things he did was to acquire wives for his nephew. And one of the wives he asked for was Kandari. Kandari was a very beautiful, beautiful princess from an area today known as Afghanistan. And she was a very eligible lady, and she was very desired. But because of wanting to form alliances, at that time people got married so that families could join together and, you know, protect each other. So this is why Kandari was, her father and mother offered her to, when Bhishma Dev came to get a wife for his brother Dhritarashtra, he asked for Kandari, knowing how qualified she was. Now, Kandari had a brother named Shakuni, and he was so upset. Like the Kurus had already had some interaction with their family in a previous fight. So he had some animosity towards the Kurus. But then he got even more angry when he found out that his father wanted his beautiful sister to marry a blind person. Although Dhritarashtra came from a topmost royal family, he was blind. And being blind prohibited him from being the king, actually. And the reason why sometimes you have to inquire why, you know, why, if he's blind, he's still a king or has royal blood. But the idea was that at the time when kings would go on battle, the leader, the king himself, would lead. He wouldn't just send his soldiers, he'd go with them, he'd lead. And he had to see so he could lead. So if he didn't have that ability, he couldn't do it. So Dhritarashtra was born blind, and his uncle Bhishma asked for the hand of Kandari. And even though Kandari was so accomplished and beautiful, she accepted this and made a terrible decision that if her husband was blind, she'd cover her eyes with a cloth and she'd be blind with him. Imagine that. Who would do that? You know, she can see and then she makes a choice not to see. So she's given so much credit for making such a vow like that. And she upheld it. She upheld it. In the meantime, there was Kunti. So Mother Kunti is another glorious personality in the Mahabharata. We had Kandari, Kunti, Draupadi, Subhadra. These are the kind of the main characters, especially in terms of the battle. And so Mother Kunti, being the mother of the Pandavas, who were the cousins to Gandhari's children, she was married to Pandu, the illustrious brother of Dhritarashtra. So of course we had Dhritarashtra, the blind son. We had Pandu, who's really eligible for the throne, but he's under a curse. So he's in the forest with his two wives, Kunti and Madri. Kunti has a benediction where she can call any demigod and have a child with that demigod. And because her husband has a curse, he can't have children. So he insists that Kunti use her benediction and have these children. So Kunti has Yudhishthira, she has Arjun, all these highly beautiful, wonderful, great devotees. And she has Bhima, Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjun. And then there's a co-wife, Madri. There's a co-wife, Madri, who uses Kunti's benediction to have two sons, Nakula and Sahadev. So here's the story. So we have the 5 Pandavas, the sons of Kunti, and we have Kandari, who has 100 sons. She had a benediction from previous pious activities, but because the Kunti and Kandari were pregnant at the same time, and Kunti had her child first. And for some reason, Kandari, whose nature was usually, pretty dutiful and accepting of certain, she got so upset and so angry and so jealous that her child wasn't the firstborn because, again, remember the political stuff going on. There's nobody on the throne. It really does belong to the sons of Pandu, but Dhritarashtra is sort of raising them and acting as king on their behalf. But in his heart, Dhritarashtra, the blind king, wants his sons to be the king. So this false ego thing is permeating all of the dealings. So here's Gandhari, and Kunti's baby is born first, Yudhishthira. So Kandari takes her stomach out of anger and beats her stomach so much until the baby in the stomach comes out. It's not a baby, it's a mass of flesh. And she's so outdone. She had carried the baby for 2 years anyway. She had carried this baby, Kandari, for 2 whole years. And so when she has this lump of flesh, she's really bewildered, and Vedavyas, the author of the Mahabharata, he comes and he explains to her that her karma, that you have been granted 100 sons, don't be dismayed. He tells her to get these 100 pots and put each of the little pieces of the mass in the pot with some ghee, and then he gives her some mantras to chant and tells her to gradually take the baby, open the pot at certain times. So within a period of about a year, so all of her 100 sons are born. And on the birth of Duryodhana, the oldest son, there were so many bad signs going on into the kingdom, and Dhritarashtra sought the advice from his younger brother Vidura, who was very learned and wise and a devotee of the Lord. And they saw these signs indicate that this child is going to cause devastation to your whole family. You need to get rid of them. But Dhritarashtra, that's my child, that's my son, no. So he didn't heed that advice. So Gandhari, in the meantime, you all imagining now that she's blindfolded, so she doesn't see. So her servants have to, kind of take care of her. But she and her husband, Dhritarashtra, had sort of a decent relationship in a way, because he respects her, number one, for marrying her and for her vow. And Gandhari stands up for righteous principles. She was the only elder who spoke out when Draupadi was disrobed. Kandari spoke out against that was totally wrong and, would be against the religious principles. And it was her who advised her husband to give Draupadi 2 benedictions so that he can make up for that terrible, terrible offense. And whenever her son, Duryodhana, would want blessings from her, she would not give him blessings. She said, only righteousness will prevail, my dear son. What can I say? So she kind of stood up for the principle, very attached to doing her religious duty. And we'll see this as a difference between Draupadi, Kunti, and Kandari. All these are great ladies. I mean, who could do what any of them did? You know, they all went through all kinds of hardships and challenges. And the difference, though, between Kandari and Kunti and Draupadi is that Kunti and Draupadi had a very loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Draupadi, her name is Krishna. She's a friend of Krishna's. Kunti has so much love and connection in a maternal way with Krishna. So there's a difference between Gandhari's relationship, even though she was a very righteous, religious, austere lady. So what happens at the end, you all know the battlefield. Everybody warned Dhritarashtra. Prabhupada calls him ill-motivated Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra knew that Krishna was God. And he knew that wrong will never triumph over right. But somehow, because of his false ego and his attachment to his own self, because his attachment for Duryodhana really was attachment for himself, because Duryodhana represented an extension of his body. So a couple more things, then we'll wrap this up. Shakuni, as I had said before, was Gandhari's brother. And he was so angry and resentful in all his dealings. So he actually got in that family. He actually assimilated himself in the family so that he could destroy the Kurus. That was how much anger. So even though these were his nephews, and that was his sister's family, his goal was to revenge. So he was constantly in Duryodhana's ear, telling him, oh, you know, don't accept the Pandavas, trick the Pandavas, do this to the Pandavas. He didn't care. He just wanted the whole family destroyed. That was sort of a terrible, terrible brother. But anyway, Shakuni was always that devious person in the ear of Duryodhana. And therefore, Duryodhana never made any really good decisions listening to his uncle. And Gandhari actually should have cut off her brother as well. But again, they had that brotherly relationship. So at the end, after the war, Gandhari is just devastated. There's no, way that she can be consoled. All of her children are gone. All of her grandchildren, everything that was valuable to her in terms of family is over. And she had tried to warn her husband and her son, to be honest, because she never agreed for the evil things they did. And when Yudhishthira, Arjuna, and Krishna came after the battle to tell Mother Kandari that it was over and everybody was dead, she was very angry and hurt, but Bhima, because he glorified her son, he said, why did you kill my son in such an unlawful way, Bhima? She asked him that. That was her nephew. And he said, my dear auntie, your son was such a great warrior. He could beat me. I had no other way. So she kind of forgave him because, of course, it was her nephew and he glorified Duryodhana. And then she looked at Yudhishthira and she told him that but you just became so humble. He said, my dear auntie, it's all my fault. This whole war, I didn't even want it. Please forgive me. I accept full responsibility. Whatever way you want to curse me, I accept it. So because Yudhishthira was so honest and so humble, they said that a little of the power from her eye hit a toe of his and the toe got completely burnt with her anger. And then she decided that she would blame Krishna. She said, Krishna, this is all your fault. You're God. You didn't have to let this war happen. Now my whole family is destroyed. You could have intervened, Krishna. So this is like we all blame God, right? I mean, Krishna went in several times and tried to mediate and get that family together, but they wouldn't listen. So Kandari, she cursed Krishna. It was uncharacteristic of her to do something like that, but she did. She said, what happened to my family, Krishna, will happen to yours. All of your sons and grandsons will kill themselves, and then somebody will kill you. So she predicted that Krishna would be shot with an arrow by a hunter. But Krishna just smiled because he knew that this was all divine arrangement, and it was time for the Yadu dynasty to wrap up their activities, and this is how the Lord chose to do it. So it's a very intriguing story, this whole Mahabharata, and within the Mahabharata we have the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, in which Krishna advises Arjuna to surrender everything and become my devotee. So now we'll talk a little bit about what does this story of Kandari mean to us today. We want to look at our scriptures, our shastras, and we want to dive deeply into, why did Vyasadeva produce these glorious books, this Mahabharata? Why did Prabhupada spend so much time and energy and sacrifice making sure we had this Bhagavatam? Because the Bhagavatam will be our reference for the next 10,000 years. What to do and what not to do, right? All these stories, we learn from Kandari, we learn from Draupadi, we learn from, the demon, Vitrasara, full of stories to tell us, to help us to grow. So in Kandari's pastime, one of the things we can learn is that we're in the material world and everything's not going to go our way, so we should make the best of a bad bargain. Instead of becoming depressed and crazy when something doesn't go our way, we should analyze and figure out, okay, how can I deal with this and make it work? And one of the things, that's what Kandari did. She married a husband who was blind. She was a beautiful princess, a royal family, but she made the best of a bad bargain. And the history records that she was a great mother and a great person of integrity, and that she bore her duties very well. There were times when she had, her conditioning exposed, but she's listed on the list of great heroic chaste women because she made the best of a bad bargain. Another lesson we can learn from Kandari is that there's great benefit to upholding religious principles even when it seems contrary to our own desires. In other words, religious principles have been given by Krishna to help us make gradual growth to get back to our real self. We had, and beyond religion is the total transcendental connection to Krishna, what we call Suddha Sattva. And this is what our aim for it. But in the beginning, we follow these religious codes, we do these things to develop a greater purity in our hearts so that we can do that. So there's benefit to following these religious principles, very important concept, especially for human beings and especially for our growth. A third lesson we can learn from Kandari's story is that someone close to us, on the pretext of working in our best interest, can be acting totally against our interests, as we see in the case of Shikuni, her own brother. His total goal from beginning to end was to use his sister to destroy that dynasty that he had so much anger and enmity with. So we have to be careful that our associates and analyze, are they really our well-wishers? Are they really our friends? Are they really people, no matter how much we think, oh, this is my family member or whatever, can I trust with helping me to grow in a healthy way? And so Shikuni was not one. Another lesson we can learn from Kandari is that a wise wife will learn and understand the nature of her husband and endeavor not to act superior to him. Now, of course, we know this is quite a controversial topic where we talk about how the women and the devotees should be submissive and this and that. And the idea for us as Vaishnavis or persons aspiring on the spiritual path is that we want to eventually get to the point where we understand we are not a woman. We're not the body. We are an eternal spark of God, an eternal servant of God. And that realization is what will free us in all the ways. And our challenge in women's bodies is that people are going to tell us we are a woman. And they're going to put us in a box. And we'll have to keep ourselves out of that box because of their ignorance. We should know better and do better. But we use everything to offer to Krishna. We want to have healthy marriages. We want to raise good, decent children. So we use the science of how do you operate with a husband, how do you operate with a wife, so that your family and your marriage is a sweet offering to the Lord. So there's so many hints in the scriptures how if one learns how to communicate properly, if one learns how to be humble, if one has this mood of service. The husband should be a servant too, and the wife should be a servant too. That's the whole key to the marriage thing. And so if a wise wife understands, okay, what's my husband's nature? And how do I deal with that? You know, then you'll be a win-win kind of thing. So Kandari put the blindfold on because she didn't want to be superior to her husband. She could understand the mentality mostly of men. Their ego is such that they want to be in charge. And so she worked with that. However, be mindful, you all, that Kandari spoke out. She was not just some wimp. And her husband heard her. I mean, he didn't change his plan because he was so attached to his offensive son. But she would tell him things. And actually, you know, she was the one who spoke out about Draupadi. And because of her, Draupadi's wishes were honored like that. So she wasn't just a wallflower. She spoke out. She stood for the truth, but she understood how to deal with her husband. Another lesson we can learn from Kandari is that there's a great power in practicing austerities. That when you follow your guidelines, your instructions from your guru, when you chant Hare Krishna every day, when you offer your fruit to Krishna, when you associate with devotees, when you study the Bhagavatam, these things actually purify the heart. And the more the heart becomes purified, the more empowered we become to be lovers and loving. And we also become mystically strong, depending. So in Kandari's case, Kandari actually developed mystic powers because she made that total sacrifice of giving up her eyesight. And that sacrifice gave her power. So there's mystic power in it. But tapasya without love for Krishna can cause hard-heartedness or extreme unhealthy detachment. So that's why doing austerities and all that, that's no big deal. The goal of those austerities is the big deal. How to love Krishna. Is Krishna pleased with me? Am I, you know, in line with what Krishna wants me to do? So comparing Draupadi, now Draupadi was a little upset with Krishna, and maybe a lot upset with Krishna, because she asked him at one point, she said, Krishna, you know, I called you, you took a while. And Krishna actually said that he regretted that he didn't come right away when Draupadi called him. He said that was one of his regrets. Because Draupadi and Krishna had this wonderful, loving relationship. And in love, you can be upset with someone you love, but you're still going to connect with them. You're still going to honor them. And so that was that. But now when Kandari was upset with Krishna, because there wasn't that love there, that's how she could curse Krishna like that. And that's how in the end of her life, she and Dhritarashtra, her husband, Kunti, Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra's secretary, and Vidura, they all went into the forest because Vidura said, look, we're all old, our teeth are rotting, and losing our eyesight. Let us use these last years to make that final connection to get, you know, our liberation, moksha. So they all went, they heard him. And after 2 years, I think Sanjaya left and Vidura passed away. And then there was a forest fire and they died in the forest fire. Dhritarashtra, Kunti, and Kandari. Voluntarily, actually, Kandari and Kunti died in the fire. They had been doing austerities in the forest anyway. So that was the end of Kandari's life, a tragic heroine who somewhat epitomized a good lady, and yet because that good lady didn't have pure love for Krishna, her story and Draupadi and Kunti's story is different. And then finally, one more thing is how much what we do affects others. So we hear all this interplay of politics and Shakuni and, Duryodhan, and everybody's got their agenda and their sneaky strategy. And, the whole family is lost and wasted. So we should learn these lessons from Gandhari's life and look at our lives and compare as to what are we doing. We can ask the question, should Gandhari actually have put that blindfold on? Or could she have done more service if she could see and do the things that were needed? But either way, as I said, she's glorified for that. And that was an intense thing. So I think I'm going to stop here and ask if there are questions or answers. Or answers or comments or thoughts.
Okay. Haribo. We have a lot of comments. I would like to read one. She says here, Hare Krishna, dear Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for sharing your wonderful understanding, realizations, and application of the illustrious examples of the chaste ladies of Mahabharata. Then we got a question. In my personal life, I had to deal with enmity from my family. Even now, my mother has shut me out of her life, and even my son has done the same. I am trying to understand why this is happening to me, because to my knowledge, I have not done anything to deserve this kind of rejection from both sides. So is this somehow my karma, or is it Krishna's way of teaching me detachment?
Well, yeah, everything that happens to us is something that Krishna would like us to learn. That's a definite fact. We can, pretty much take that to whatever happens, especially if you're a serious, sincere practitioner of Bhakti Yoga or spiritual life, is meant for our growth and development. And these are painful things. These family relationships can cause great heartache, as we can see in the story that we just shared with the Mahabharata. So I don't know if you have an opportunity to just talk with your family and just ask them what's going on. I don't know if you feel that would be a good move, but sometimes that just, to have clarity, like what's going on, I don't understand, have I offended you in some way? And then, you can get to know what the problem or issue is. So it's good to reach out, sweetie, and try to see if you can initiate a communication or a conversation about that. Otherwise, you pray for your family and you try to be a good example. There are always things that we've done to maybe hurt somebody and we didn't even know it, or maybe said things, or whatever that is. So from henceforth or from now on, if we just make a choice, I'm going to be a good example of loving relationships, even if the other person is not. And so that's a good thing to say, I would think.
Oh, the comments are coming in saying thank you for such an excellent lecture, and everyone is saying that they really appreciate you and that they love you.
Okay. Yeah, as well.
Okay, here's another question. Why wasn't Kandari angry with her husband? Instead, she was angry with Krishna.
Very good question. Yes, she wasn't. Well, at times she got a little upset with Dhritarashtra, but they had an attachment for each other. And in some ways, she excused his behavior, although she did not condone it. And it's hard when you're married to someone and they have a sort of commitment to act in a certain way that you know is not helpful, but you still want to be supportive and that kind of thing. So that was a challenge for Kandari. But because everybody blames Krishna, she could take that out on Krishna and be done with it, you know, and she did.
Okay, another question is, Queen Kandari valued righteousness and was so pious. How was it then possible for her to become envious of Queen Kunti?
Well, again, very good question, Radhika. Again, you remember we said that what Gandhari did kind of was out of religious duty more than love for Krishna. You know, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Sarvam Dhamma Pavichaccha Mami Kam Sharanam Vajama Amcham Sarva Papebhyo Moksha Masicha. Just abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. I will give you all protection, do not fear. So Krishna is saying, first he tells us to be religious, and then he tells us to abandon religion. It's a very important thought to think about. What is he saying? So Krishna is saying that religion should take us to a certain point of surrender to Krishna. And at that base of surrender, it should go deeper into loving God. And so you're not going to get stuck on just following religious rules and principles. You're going to get stuck on pleasing God, on loving God, on developing your relationship to Krishna. So this way you have a goal, sadhya, in mind, that's the purpose. So Gandhari was a very religious lady, but she wasn't a pure devotee. And so that made all the difference in the world. There's a story in the Krishna book, in Bhagavatam, of King Nagra. And King Nagra was, Krishna came, the God came 5,000 years ago to reestablish religious principles and take care of the devotees and annihilate the demons. So one of the things he did was deliver this living entity who was stuck in a well. And he had been stuck in that well for a long time. It was a huge lizard. And when Krishna touched him, he came out of the well and he was able to revive his demigod body. He had actually not been a demigod, but been a very powerful emperor on the world. And had billions of cattle. His wealth was just so, you couldn't even describe his wealth, King Nigra. And so he gave cows to the Brahmins. There were 2 Brahmins, he gave them some cows. Maybe one he gave 1,000, maybe one he gave 900, maybe one. But somehow, one of the cows or 2 of the cows from the one Brahmin wandered over into the house of the other Brahmin. And they got into a fight about these cows. And so King Nigra said, oh, don't worry. I'll just give each of you 1,000 more cows or 10,000. But they insisted that you have given us these cows. And now you're going to offend a Brahmin by not giving us, you taking it back. So he didn't know what to do. So they cursed him that because you don't understand how to properly respect the Brahmins, then you become a lizard. So he became a lizard for a long time. And when Krishna touched him, he, as I said, revived his body and he was sin. So here's a case then of a person being attached to charity and doing good rather than pleasing Krishna. And so we have to be careful of that because, as Vaishnavas, we want to be free of pious and impious acts because pious acts have a consequence as well. So we're trying to get rid of that consequence. So Gandhari didn't have that love for Krishna. She was situated in that religious kind of thing. So that made a difference.
Thank you for that. That was an amazing answer. Austerity without love for Krishna and how Gandhari shows us what that looks like and the dangers of it.
Mm-hmm.
In another question, is that okay? I just lost it. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, as a parent, as a mother, how can we teach our children to be compassionate, gentle, and at the same time be tough, since this world needs that from them? How can we present? How can we present based on? How can we parent based on Vedic principles? What could have Mother Kandari, as a mother, have done to bring her kids in a righteous way?
Okay, excellent questions. These are always the questions that keep us thinking, because we want to, as spiritual, as people, we're not just concerned about the physical health of our children, but our spiritual and emotional health as well. It's a constant challenge for a parent, how to teach values really to your children. And the primary way you teach values to the children is to live it. Don't be a hypocrite. Let them see the real deal. If you want them to be truthful, you be truthful. If you want them to, be clean, you be clean. If you want them to learn how to respect their elders, you respect their elders. These are so important and such a simple way of doing a magical thing, because children tend to pick up what you do a lot more than what you say. So it's very important for parents to exemplify the values that we want our children to have. Very important. And being open and honest with them, having human interactions. We have to have relationships with our children where they trust us and we trust them. And those relationships are built on service. Those relationships are built on honesty. And a lot of what you can do when your children are young is make sure you read them a lot of stories from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. It's amazing how much value a simple thing like this. Reading to your children from Bhagavatam, these stories, these pastimes, let them read to you. Talk about what it means. Use them as examples to learn, like I said, what to do and what not to do. Also, you pray to ask Krishna to help us how to raise these children in very trying times. And you want to associate with other families who value. We don't want our children to just be loose, be deliberate in sort of helping them have friends and associates whose parents and families also value being truthful and clean and compassionate and serving God. Like that. So you want to be an example, you want to pray mightily, and you want to be in the right association. And you want to hear your children. You want to understand that your children, they don't belong to you. These are Krishna's children, and he is allowing us an opportunity to do some wonderful, albeit difficult service. It's the hardest service. But if we take it on for Krishna with a sincere and serious heart, the Lord is so pleased with that, because these children, are his, and he's given us this opportunity to shape and mold their lives. And another thing is to, make sure you chant Hare Krishna every day. The holy name of Krishna is the only way for everything to happen that's good. Harinama, 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 Eva Keva Lokalo, Nasteva, 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 Gajaya Anyata. There's no other way. So combining chanting Hare Krishna every day and chant with your children, do fun things with your children. A lot of times one of the mistakes we made in the past was sometimes the parents were too rigid and we didn't play enough. We didn't have enough recreation with the children. We didn't allow them to have self-expression and creativity. We didn't allow them to ask other good questions. We didn't tell them sometimes we didn't know the answers to those questions. But now we're learning, and there's some books on parenting that really are valuable that would be good for the devotees. Anybody who's a parent, we have our Heart and Soul Connection, a devotional guide to marriage, service, and love. It's a wonderful chapter in there about parenting. There's another book, I can't remember the name of it. I have an article in it about parenting by the devotees. So people are, putting together their experiences and whatnot and sharing. So the main thing is we pray and we're intentional. Like we want to say, what kind of child do I want to offer to Krishna, to Prabhupada, to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, and get some clarity. I want a child that's truthful and clean and compassionate, that loves the Lord, that respects his elders. So I'm clear now. I have my framework, and then I interact with the child just to bring out those qualities. So hopefully, that will be helpful.
That was really practical. And where you mentioned by making it fun, it reminded me of my childhood and how my parents made it fun and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Another question is, thank you, Mata, for your precious time and guidance. I appreciate your reminder that ultimately we want to move beyond identifying as a woman. At the same time, we are also told how we should behave as Vaishnavis, and this can feel like an oxymoron. I struggle to walk this line. How do we find the balance? As a Western woman coming to this movement a little later in life, it can be hard to relate to the high standard of chastity set by such personalities as Draupadi.
Yes, we that's why they say we don't imitate, we follow, because the standards that have been set, I'm going to have to move around a little bit. The standards that have been set for by these very great personalities, we really can't imitate them, but we can hopefully learn and practice some of the things that they practice and learned. And as I was saying, that if you chant every day, even if your chanting is not the best, but somehow or other you're still appealing to Radha and Krishna, then you will get help from inside, how to be a parent. Because the parenting thing is very challenging and children are different. What works for one child may not work for another child. So we have to be able to have an intuitive sense of time, place, and circumstance. And that actually comes like when you have a baby, and usually the milk comes, Krishna kind of already prepared these bodies to do whatever service. So, we have the milk that comes when the baby is born. So when a child is born, if a parent is sufficiently serious about serious spiritual life and is not a drug addict or, is a pretty clean, then Krishna in the heart will guide that parent what to do, what not to do, who to associate with, who to get mentor. And, part of it's because you're open to that. So the other thing is, let's see, her question was, how do we do this? You kind of have to solicit the help of the children. This is a crazy time. We have to strategize. You're in a battle and you're trying to save somebody and they're fighting against you. What do? You have to strategize. And you don't do the same thing all the time. So sometimes you act like a sweet, kind, wonderful person, and sometimes you act like a lion that roars. So the children are not quite sure what's happening. But all the time, you act with love and care and prayer, and that's how you do it.
Mother Krsnanadini, do you have time for one more question?
Yes, I do, sweetie.
So the last question for this session is, Hare Krishna Mataji, I offer my humble obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for such a wonderful narration. I would like to ask, if Kandari had offered an apology to Lord Krishna, would her life have improved?
Well, that's hard to say, Prabhu, because Kandari was playing a role, and she played her role excellently, just like we're playing a role. And Krishna, being a person and having the ultimate sensitivities, he knew what that was like to be a mother and lose 100 sons and all your grandsons. So actually, Krishna did not hold anything against Kandari. In fact, he had a lot of respect and appreciation for her. And he just, she wasn't able, her outcome wasn't horrible, like she got liberation, but that gives her an opportunity in wherever her next birth was to go deeper and actually develop that love for Krishna. So Krishna didn't require an apology from Gandhari because he understood, what that meant. He just wished her well, ever well wisher, and then that way she was able to, at least have that release. It was a hard thing for her,
I think that our dear Kamania has a question. Is it you, Kamania, or was it Sharadia? I'm not sure because I received a message from
I was
Sadhvi.
asking, once you close up the meeting and give our thanks to Mother Krsnanadini, I have a separate announcement to make, but I guess now you want to close up.
So if there's no more questions, I would like to say thank you, dear Mother Krsnanadini, for your time and for such a wonderful class, and for sharing, these practical lessons and how we can implement them in our lives. And dear Vaishnavis, thank you for attending and for your wonderful questions.
Yeah, Radhika.
Hare Krishna.
Radhika, Hare Krishna, sweetie. I would like to ask at least maybe 3 of the listeners to share something, at least one thing that they'll take away from our class today. Like 3 volunteers would share with me at least one thing that they'll take away from this class.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Mata.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada. Lots of love from England.
I hear you. I think this is Samya.
Yes, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Can you share at least one thing that you'll take away from today's class?
You're asking me, Mata?
Yes.
Hari Bol. I'm so fortunate. Please accept my obeisances. One thing you says in my head is to become a better parent is to become a good devotee first, so we can show in our actions and so that the kids see us rather than just hear from us. So thank you so much for reinforcing that, Mataji. By your blessings, I can be a better mother. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, a couple more.
May I share, Mataji?
Yes, please.
My name is Flavia. I am a Krishna devotee in training. I'm been studying now for maybe a little over a year, although I've been associated with the temple for longer, but really chanting my rounds every day. Sometimes I don't make it before 7, but in the last 6 months I've had some serious health issues where I've been hospitalized for a couple of weeks. I actually very, very sick with lung issues. And I recently took on the responsibility of a grandchild, and he's been with me 2.5 years. He is showing interest in Krishna consciousness, and I don't want to push him away, but I don't want to engage him when he seems to not want to do this. So what you said about reading, because before I became really devoted into Krishna consciousness, I always was interested in the Hindu belief, and I used to read Bible stories to the children before this, because that's what I grew up knowing. So it just made so much sense to me. Read the Bhagavad Gita to them, read the Srimad Bhagavatam, because they will sit and, because my daughter also, but she's not as much as my grandson who's 12, they will look at the Krishna movies, but I didn't think, read to them, read out of the, thank you so much, because it's like a light bulb came on in my head when you said that. Just like I read Bible stories, I can read the Bhagavatam too. It's just, thank you so much.
Good.
It makes so much sense. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah. And get other little things like coloring books and puzzles,
Yes.
all of those things that you can, enhance the children's experience.
Yes.
So that reading is so powerful.
Yes, I appreciate you so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada for my humble obeisances to you and your family. Stay well.
For sharing.
Thank you so much.
And then one more.
Hare Krishna Mata. So somebody wrote something mistakenly to me, but it was such a sweet point. Lisa said her takeaway was that austerity without love is not devotion.
Ah, very good, very good, very good.
Hare Krishna, Mother Krsnanadinin, this is Loka. I'm the one who made that point.
Oh, Loka, Haribo, that's the point.
Haribo. Yes, it really struck home because we so often focus on the point of austerity. And I just loved the way you made that point, that austerity without love can make us hard-hearted. And the whole point ultimately is to find and express that love for Krishna. So thank you so much for that. That was my takeaway.
It's so nice to hear your voice, sweetie. I hope you're well.
I'm so delighted to see you and participate in this. So delighted.
And my prayers are with you. And anything you need, Prabhu, please ask anything you need.
Thank you, Loka. I think I'll take you up on that.
Please do, Hare Krishna. Please do.
Mata, we're so grateful to you. As always, we never want to let you go. We can't get enough of you, but we're so grateful for your time. And please, thank you for showering us with your blessings. And
you all have a really Krishna conscious day. And may the Lord bless us all to develop these qualities that Draupadi and Kunti and all these wonderful, great lady devotees that have, and maybe dive more deeply into their pastimes so we can, get their blessings and mercy, especially Srimati Radharani.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you all.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, love you,
Hare
Mata.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for
I just want to invite you to a talk that we're going to be streaming now to the Sadhvi Sangha page with Chitti Shakti Prabhu. She's giving a talk through the ISKCON Crawley in the UK Facebook page, the relationship between mental health, spiritual practice, and spiritual advancement. And I know many of you know Chitti Shakti Prabhu from the classes she's given through Sadhvi Sangha. She's an amazing devotee and also a psychologist. So with 40 years or 40 years of Krishna consciousness behind all of her professional credentials. So please come to the Sadhvi Sangha group page and we'll be sharing the live stream there. It just now started.
Yeah, okay, very good, sweetie. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, take care now.
Hare
Thank you very much, Prabhus.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear devotee. Thank you, Radhika. I'm sorry for stepping in there.
No problem.
I stopped the live stream, so we are somewhat private now. I was just a little concerned that people wouldn't let Mata go, and she clearly needed to go. So my apologies to the ladies who had more questions, and I'm like you. I also never want to let Mother Krsnanadinin go, but she needed to. So thank you for that, for tolerating the interruption. And I don't know about you, but I really want to hear